Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, you most definitely know about this game. It was a smashing success. It has everything you could want in a Dragon Ball game. An expansive roster, an interesting story mode, tons of content to keep you coming back for more, and, of course, a character creator that lets you make your own Dragon Ball character. So you can create either a generic male Saiyan OC or a Majin amalgamation. There's really no limit. It also has an extensive list of downloadable content and occasional updates that keeps you coming back. With all these incredible features, this game should have won Game of the Year 3 times in a row, right? Well... What the fuck? Despite all these features that are good on paper, this is probably one of the most mediocre Dragon Ball and anime games in recent times, with a completely mediocre dev team that is completely oblivious to what the people actually want, constantly saying they'll fix problems only to completely abandon that idea, or leave things worse than what they already were. This game has fallen from grace in the last 3 or so years, and today I'll be highlighting all of the different ways that Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 has fallen off, so to speak. I'll be splitting this into multiple sections to give the illusion that this whole video is organized, when in reality it's just me ranting about a video game that I have kind of lost interest in over the last few years. Alright, with that all out of the way, let's get started. In today's modern age, a lot of MMOs and RPGs and other tangentially related game genres have a character creator, which is a great thing. Character creators give the player the chance to flex their creative muscles and make the protagonist look like whatever they want, further adding to the immersion or completely taking you out of it by making some disgusting monster. Everything from Elden Ring to Pokemon have some kind of feature like this, and it's a great and fun feature to mess around with. Trying different outfits and hairstyles can be fun, especially for someone like me who has a passion for art and character creation, but not having the actual art skills to make my own. Naturally, Xenoverse, and subsequently Xenoverse 2, had their own character creator, and for the time it was great, but it hasn't aged very well. Even back then, it was very limited and kind of lackluster, and I think we were just blinded by the fact that we could do it at all when it came out. Xenoverse's character creator is not really that good, and you can tell by seeing all the CACs whenever you're into a lobby. Everyone looks exactly the same with only slightly different deviations. There's only a handful of different options for each facial feature, and most of the time, only half of them are good. Especially for the Saiyans and Earthlings. There's only really a handful of hairstyles that are actually good, and people usually end up using either the Gohan hair or the ponytail. Which I'm guilty of. I use the Gohan hair for one of my characters. The rest are either decent or just weird and bizarre, or something that most people would never pick for a character creator. It's a bit better for the female side, but again, people only end up using a small handful because they just look naturally better to most people. Don't believe me? Go into the main lobby of a Xenoverse lobby and play a drinking game every single time you see a female Saiyan or Earthling with this hairstyle. I promise you, you'll be dead in like 5 minutes. The Manjins, Namekians, and Friezas fare a bit better simply just because they're a bit more out there with their designs, but again, people only really end up defaulting towards the small handful that look the best. This mainly applies to hair since that's the most obvious, but it applies to the rest of the features as well. There's just not enough to make characters stand out. Obviously in a game like this with a huge player base, there's going to be some overlap in terms of designs, and there's naturally going to be a collection of hairstyles that players will inevitably gravitate towards. But it shouldn't be this bad. There needs to be a wider collection of cool or just good hairstyles for the players to choose from, so there isn't as much overlap in terms of pick rate. Now, some people might argue in defense that adding more hairstyles into the game could be harder than it seems, and that could entirely be possible. Please keep in mind that I know nothing about game development and how all these things work, and they could be difficult and tedious to add. But, since custom hairstyles in the modding community for this game seem to be plentiful, I can't imagine it would be too strenuous to add just a couple of extra hairstyles every few updates to give the community some more variety. If you guys can afford to add units for the Hero Coliseum update that no one plays every update, then you can afford to add a few hairstyles every now and then. They had a free update with every DLC launch anyway, so that's definitely a good opportunity to add something like that. But instead of adding actual hairstyles, they add wigs that no one wears that don't even change hair color when you transform. You think people wouldn't want to have a Goku or Broly or Kefla hairstyle? I personally would love to have that base form Broly hair for my male Saiyan, or the Kefla hairstyle for my female Saiyan. But instead, I'm stuck with a wig. You already have the models from the wigs and the characters in Goku's case. I can't imagine it would be that hard to just copy and paste those assets onto a new hairstyle, but they just don't. To draw a comparison, let's look at a different anime arena fighter with a character creator, Jump Force. Now, I'm not going to get too into the details of Jump Force. Everyone said what needed to be said. You know why it's bad. I know why it's bad. But one thing I will defend of it is that it had a dang good character creator. It had a large variety of hairstyles, had more freedom in terms of face and body shape, had more options in terms of colors, whether it be face, eye, or hair. You could control more aspects of the body besides just height and width, and you could choose between 1 of 4 fighting styles. It gave you much more freedom in what you wanted for your character to look like overall. Honestly, it feels like Jump Force put all of their budget into the character creator more than anything else. Speaking of other things Jump Force did better than Xenoverse, the clothing. The clothing options you have available to you in Xenoverse is very vast, but it's also flawed. Yes, it gives you access to a wide variety of different outfits from the entirety of the franchise, but it's still a situation of people gravitating towards the, granted, larger handful of outfits compared to the hairstyles that look good, which only further adds to how repetitive and boring everyone looks since they're all wearing different versions of the same collection of clothing outfits. An easy solution, in my opinion, for this would be to let players customize the clothing of all the outfits they have available to you besides just the custom ones. And since they've shown multiple times to have the materials to change the color of canon outfits, once with their collection of custom clothing and recently with the customizable partners and you being able to change their outfits, it'd be easy to, again, just copy and paste those assets onto every piece of clothing. It would be tedious, yeah, probably, but this way, even if someone's wearing the same outfit as you, the colors could be different, so it gives people the opportunity to play around with different outfits and costumes that maybe wouldn't have meshed well together because of a bad color palette. But unfortunately, they don't. And what's even weirder is that they even gave us a glimpse of giving us canon outfits in different colors. About a year or so ago, they released Taepyeon's outfit with different color palettes, as part of a limited time event. This is just one of the many examples to show that Dimps doesn't really have their priorities set on the customization portion of this game, even though it was one of the main selling points. And it's what the community has been asking for since the game came out. It just shows that Dimps is completely oblivious to what the people really want. This is definitely more of a smaller thing and nowhere near the biggest problem that Xenoverse has, but for a game that prides itself on being one of the first Dragon Ball games to have a character creator, to have it this small and this limited is embarrassing. And it shows that they clearly don't have it in them to add what should be very basic things. We'll come back to clothing a little bit later, but let's move on to something that's a bit more pressing. Xenoverse's crappy netcode has been a running joke in the community basically since its launch, and it's totally justified. The netcode in this game is so bad and so inexcusable, it makes Super Smash Bros. Ultimate look like Guilty Gear Strive. Characters will fall out of true combos, attacks will delay, hit from behind, or just pass right through the opponent like you tried to punch a ghost. There are some instances of people just sidestepping out of a true stamina break combo. Now, a lot of these cases can be caused because of one of the players having a bad connection, which is true. Even the best netcodes can be brought back if someone's playing on the equivalent of McDonald's Wi-Fi. But I think a lot of it just comes from Xenoverse's servers. There is no reason why 2 people with green bar connection should be experiencing combo drops and wonky hitboxes hitting behind or to the side. This has been without question Xenoverse's biggest glaring issue since it came out, and is the issue that the community has been begging Dimps for it to change. And despite making efforts to fix the netcode, it's never been fully patched. Even as recently as 4 months ago, they put out a patch saying they fixed a bunch of lag and stuttering issues with the game. Turns out, they didn't appear to change anything, and the netcode appeared to be exactly the same as it was before. I don't know why they haven't fixed the netcode as of yet. I understand that fixing an entire online service is a bit more challenging than adding some hairstyles, but considering it's been 6 years with them consistently promising online patches only for them to end up falling flat, it's kind of frustrating. Maybe it's a case of them fixing it little by little in ways we don't notice instead of patching the whole thing at once. Or maybe it's a case of the netcode being too far gone to fix and they're just saying that they will in the patch notes to give us some kind of hope that it'll get better. I'm not sure. Either way, the netcode is probably Xenoverse's biggest issue, and Dimps has still refused to fix it for some reason. This is the part where it's definitely going to turn into more of a rant rather than a respectful and critical look at this game. But simply put, this is likely the aspect of this game that frustrates me the most, and that is the way that Xenoverse and Dimps as a whole puts out content for this game. To really understand why this frustrates me so, let's go back in time and go through each DLC that's been added to this game. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 came out while Dragon Ball Super was still airing, so naturally, DLC of the corresponding arcs would be added as the story progressed. I mean, I remember when I got the game for the first time and got the download code for Base Form Goku Black since that arc had started the same year. It was pretty cool. These DLC packs were a welcomed addition to the game. It kept the game fresh, gave us some new quests to hunt for skills and clothing, and we get new characters and sometimes a new story if we were lucky. The first collection of DLC was understandable. The first 4 super packs added characters from Universe 6 Tournament and the Goku Black arc, and also Bojack for some reason. The first extra pack added some villains and movie characters we'd been wanting, and the second one added characters mainly from the Tournament of Power arc, and also Fu and Super Saiyan Blue for CACs. Solid inclusions! The next DLC pack was Kefla and Baby. Odd combination of characters for a DLC pack, but alright. They were characters that we'd been wanting for a while by that point. Then they released the Super Broly DLC pack 1 month before the movie actually came out. A bit weird, but alright. Then we got probably their weirdest one in these first 10. We got a DLC pack with 2 Vegetas and Ribrianne. I don't know who was begging to see Super Saiyan Blue evolved Vegeta and Ribrianne in this game, but I'm not going to say no to Super Saiyan God Vegeta, and also Blue Evolved for CACs. Then we got DLC 10, which seemed like the perfect way to end this game, with the end of Z being the main focus of the DLC, with U being the titular character, who's also voiced by Deku in this game by the way, and also with the tournament event with Pranoa becoming a playable character, Goku's End of Z Gi also being added for CACs, and with the special cutscene after you beat the tournament, and the special thank you message after you beat it. It seems like this would be the perfect end for Xenoverse 2's run. The game had been running for 3 years at that point, and fans were starting to get anxious for Xenoverse 3. So, this seemed like it would be the perfect way to capstone the game while they began production on the next installment.
You thought you'd never see me again, didn't you? Well, too bad! I'm alive!
That was until a little over a year later when we got slapped across the face with the Legendary Packs, which would add a whole bunch of characters that everyone was asking for, like Pikkon, and Caulifla, and a transformable Gogeta, even though Caulifla's permanently stuck in Super Saiyan 2. What? What was the point of all that emphasis and outright statement of DLC 10 being the end of Xenoverse 2 when you were just gonna roll on out a year later with new DLC packs anyway? To add more characters? It's not like you guys have any new characters left to bring in at this point. The only 2 characters that were added that were new in this DLC were Kale and Caulifla and also Topo. And we already had their fusion in the game, which has a better design, more personality, and cooler moves. The other 2 were either weaker or stronger versions of characters we already had. Did they just come to the conclusion that it would be more financially beneficial to just continue making more DLC instead of making a brand new game? That doesn't make any sense. People have been asking for Xenoverse 3 since before DLC 10. Do they not know how quickly copies of Xenoverse 3 would fly off the shelves if they actually made it? Honestly, Dimps' thought process seems so sporadic that it's hard to guess what they're actually thinking. But one thing is super clear. Dimps has absolutely no idea what the people actually want, especially when it comes to adding content, which is why they decided to give the community more of a say for the future of the game by creating the Conton City Vote, which allowed players to vote for what characters will be added in the next DLC pack. And 3 out of the 5 were repeats. This vote was an absolute joke. We had UI-San Goku, GT Vegeta, Bergamo Dispo, and Tracksuit Android 18. Not exactly the best. Though this isn't entirely Dimps' fault since again, they had already exhausted what little unique characters they had left at this point, so it's not like they had many options to choose from, unless they want to throw in a freaking peel-off gang or something. And the options for clothing were even more disappointing. We had King Vegeta's outfit, even though we already had his outfit from Dragon Ball Z. We had Yamcha's outfit from Dragon Ball Super, which is just a plain white martial arts outfit. We have Android 17's Ranger uniform, which is cool, but I can't really imagine it working well on most CACs. We have Android 18's tracksuit, even though we already have plenty of tracksuits in the game already. One of them is customizable, and Bulma's winter outfit. The clothing vote is one of the main reasons I think that Dimps has absolutely no idea what the community wants for this game. People have been asking for things like Hit's outfit for years, and we finally get the chance to vote for what outfits we want added to the game, and instead of Hit's outfit, we get another tracksuit. It's such a letdown. And I know you might be thinking, hey, the DLC gives us new clothing options to unlock and use. That means they're helping to make the CAC stand out, right? Well, sometimes, yeah. While some DLC packs did add some pretty cool costumes like the Pride Trooper and Super Saiyan 4 outfit, Kale and Khalifa's outfits, and many other costumes that were generally well received. But recently, they haven't been doing so hot. Tell me, how many people do you see wearing Dr. Hedo's hero suit, or Gamma 1 and Gamma 2's costume, or Pan's preschool uniform? Why not add Magenta's red suit, or Gohan's gi? That would at least be more practical and cooler than what we got. Okay, moving on to a different aspect of the DLC, the added story modes. Honestly, the continuously added story modes were a welcome addition. It added more content to the game with each installment that weren't just missions and characters, but the more they went on, the less interesting they got. For me personally, anyway. Besides the earlier story modes that were just recaps of the arcs that the DLC packs were based on, the first one was with Few, and it was my favorite one personally. It had this layer of mystery to it with this new character in Few, and also had a different kind of vibe to it, with you jumping all across moments in time with your customizable partner to different moments in time, and choosing to either correct the distortion or escalate it. And if you do it right, you can get a special ending where you fight UI Goku. It was fun, and allowed you to go back and play it again with a different mentor to see different and more unique interactions. Like seeing Super Saiyan 4 Goku fight Super Saiyan Blue Goku, or watching Captain Ginyu steal Goku Black's body. This, in my opinion, explored the more what-if aspect of Xenoverse and Dragon Ball Heroes as a whole, and it had a story that wasn't just going through the same story beats over and over again. It was a lot of fun, and had a lot of replay value. But the more the story missions got added, the more they just kind of felt like glorified parallel quests with CGI cutscenes slapped in between. None of it had that same fun or intrigue as the first one with Few. Sure, seeing stuff like Goku and future Gohan fighting an army of Janemba, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta fighting Baby to the theme of Dan Dan, and UI Goku styling on Kid Buu are cool, but it's not really enough to make up for what is basically an extended parallel quest. Because if the main appeal of the story mode is just watching cool cutscenes, you might as well just turn on the actual Dragon Ball show at that point. It's just kind of unfortunate that what used to be a welcomed addition to the upcoming DLC has become just as boring and disappointing as the increasingly underwhelming collection of characters they throw in with each new patch. Alright, moving on to the next segment, the gameplay. And for this, I'll be splitting it into two smaller segments, with the PvP segment and the PvE segment, since both have their flaws. Firstly, the PvE. It's pretty rough. Not necessarily in gameplay, the gameplay itself is fine. Sure, some of the mission requirements are pretty annoying, like being accompanied by an NPC that you have to complete the mission with over 50% health, only for them to get level 5 by a random Broly. It's frustrating for sure, but it's not like it's some irrefutable bug or overlook in detail. It's just frustrating game design. The main issue I, and a lot of other people take with the PvE quests, is the RNG. The RNG and the chances that you have to get certain things are so low and so terrible that you could Z-rank a mission 10 times in a row and not get the attack or clothing item that you're trying to get. And that's not even including all the missions where you need to beat a specific requirement, like the previously mentioned completed quest with an NPC over 50% health mission, where you'll be right at the end of the mission, and your NPC will get hit with a raw level 3 and you'll lose all of their health, making that entire attempt worthless and leading to you having to start all over again. And even if you complete the quest exactly how they want you to, there is still a larger than average chance that you still won't get the attack you want. Alright, I'm interjecting right here in the middle of this script. So this script was written several months ago, I think somewhere in between the two superhero movie DLC packs, and some stuff has changed. Firstly, I started playing the game again to see what's changed, and after doing some of the DLC quests, it feels like they changed the RNG for the better. I'm not sure if they changed it or if I just got lucky very frequently, but that was my experience. They also added a new Super Soul with the new DLC that increased the item drop rate, which is good to see. Though I still think it's kind of annoying that the Super Soul to help people get items quicker is locked behind a DLC and not like a free Super Soul, but it's not that big of a deal. So it does seem like Dimps does pay some attention to some of the things that we've requested of them in terms of the PvE. It's not perfect, but it's better than what we had before. Alright, moving on to the PvP. It's alright. It's an arena fighter, so it's going to have some flaws that come with that territory, but for the most part, the PvP aspect of Xenoverse is pretty good. Though if I had one criticism, the matches are way too short. A lot of the matches in Xenoverse are way too short because, well, the health bars are just too low. Most characters, CAC or otherwise, barely go over 3 health bars. So basically the moment you get a stamina break and have enough ki, you've basically already won unless the opponent has a limit burst. It's far from the worst issue the game has, but it's a bit frustrating to have the fights be this short. My suggestion on how to change it is to either lower the amount of damage attacks do per second, or massively up the amount of health that each character has so they can afford to survive at least one stamina break combo. This would drag the fights out a little bit longer and make them more fun, instead of it just ending in one combo. But yeah, that's my whole tangent about the PvP and the PvE aspects of this game. And finally, the online scene, in which, I mean, what else can I say? It's a mess. Ranked is filled with people abusing cheap gimmicks with CACs, abusing certain broken moves, or picking the most busted or high damaging or broken characters they can find, complete with a PvP system with health bars too low to survive more than one long-lasting combo, and a netcode that's so unstable that not even a wish from Shenron could keep it together. A lot of Ranked and the online scene in general is filled with people using cheap gimmicks and tactics with their CSCs, like low stamina female Majins, square triangle mashing male Earthlings, or male Saiyans using all of the most broken moves they can find. And the other camp is people using the most broken tier cast of characters. Now obviously there's nothing wrong, per se, with some characters being stronger than the others, especially in fighting games. There are always going to be a select few of characters that are better than the rest, that's just kind of how it works. But when Super Broly is grabbing you from this distance with what I can only assume is the Force, you have a problem. This isn't even including all the modders and hackers that are basically cheating their way to the top, to the point where the leaderboards don't even mean anything anymore because you know a majority of them either abused gimmicks and cheap strategies or just cheated their way to the top. All of this just leads to a very toxic online scene where most of the people who just want to play for fun are constantly running into people who are running broken strategies and busted characters to the point where it's just not fun. In a lot of other fighting games like Fighterz or Smash Brothers, if someone's abusing a move or spamming, it's pretty easy to find a way around it if you're skilled enough to find a counter. But in Xenoverse, there's not a whole lot you can do to work your way around some of these tactics because the combat system just heavily favors these broken tactics. And by the time you do find a workaround, you're probably down to your last bar of health anyways, so there's not a lot you can do. Honestly, I don't even know how you begin patching and balancing all of these issues, because it's not just one thing wrong. It's a huge collection of issues all combined to make one big problem. The easiest one, in my opinion, would be to start nerfing and balancing out a lot of these canon characters that are causing such a problem. Hit, Super Broly, Blue Goku, etc. Granted, considering Hit's been broken basically since launch, I don't see these issues being addressed anytime soon, but it would be a good place to start. As for the rest of these problems, it's hard to say how to deal with all the CAC related gimmicks since you'd have to nerf the CACs themselves, the moves, the Super Souls they use, it's a lot. And I think considering the amount of things working in tangent that makes the online scene in Xenoverse so toxic is why Dimps and Bandai as a whole just don't really worry about it and try to focus more on the PvE and DLC stuff now. Which, despite all the crap I've given them this video, I don't blame them. The rest of the problems in this game that I've highlighted are mostly, in my opinion, simple fixes or simple problems that could be fixed over time, but Dimps just doesn't really either out of obliviousness, laziness, or them just not realizing that it's that big of an issue. Take your pick. But this is a lot more complex than just patching a bug or nerfing a character or feature in the game. This aspect of Xenoverse is such an amalgamation of different problems all forming into one big, toxic, festering mess that I don't even think they want to touch. Which is unfortunate, but again, I don't blame them for it. So what have we learned? Well, Xenoverse 2 has a complete lack of unique customization features, a netcode that's several years behind the times, a line of content that's completely out of touch with what the people want, a PvE scene that, while has improved since its initial problems, still isn't entirely perfect, a PvP system that's fun but flawed, and an online scene that's so toxic and full of cheap tactics that it'd be impossible to fix without literally changing the fundamental aspects of the game. So where does that leave us? Well, all joking and nitpicking aside, I truly don't hate this game. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, despite its glaring flaws, is a fun game that is a joy to play, watch, and mess around with. It's fun to make your own Dragon Ball CAC and customize it to how you like. It's fun to play as all these different characters that most other games wouldn't allow you to, and hey, it's the first Dragon Ball game that officially allows you to play as Beast Gohan, so that's something. And it also has an absolutely outstanding modding community. Some of the stuff that these people make are absolutely incredible and better than some stuff that official Dragon Ball games can do. I'm sorry that if in this video I came off as more nitpicky or overly negative. It's just kind of how I am sometimes, but it's also not how I like to portray myself in my videos. I try to stay more positive when it comes to my content because I think that's just more entertaining to watch. I know some people can enjoy watching someone rant about something for an hour, but for me personally, I think it's easier to make content when you're talking about something you like, you know? But truthfully, I think this game is long past its expiration date. It's a game that's gone on way longer than I think it needed to, by a development company that has no idea what the community wants from their game, and continues to pump out DLC after DLC, hoping that it'll recapture that fire that it once had. And, while the superhero DLC was pretty good, one of the best we've had in a while, I don't think it'll be enough to save this game forever. In my opinion, the best way to save Xenoverse 2 is to honestly make Xenoverse 3. That way you can take all the things that Xenoverse 2 did right, get rid of the stuff it did wrong, and put it into a fresh new game with better graphics, better netcode, better online, better everything really. But alas, if you ask me, I doubt they're going to make Xenoverse 3, at least not anytime soon. If they didn't announce it after the PS5s were announced, or after the 10th DLC, then it's probably never going to happen until they run out of money, or run out of characters to add. For now, they're perfectly content with making mediocre DLC for this game, and doing their best to keep their DBC Dead by Daylight clone alive. I guess all we can do now is wait until Tenkaichi 4 comes out, and we may have a contender for the best modern Dragon Ball Z arena fighter. Until then, all we really have left is a game that's fallen from grace. Thank you all so much for watching. I understand that this video was a bit different than what I usually do, but honestly, these are thoughts that have been floating around my head for a while regarding this game. And I wanted to make a fully fledged video just breaking it all down because I think this game's history and the complete lack of awareness in its dev team is fascinating and kind of frustrating. Xenoverse 3 has the grounds to be an absolutely amazing game if the devs behind it are willing to put the work in it, but we'll just have to see. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things that tell YouTube I did a good job. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later.